So in these lectures, we're going to be talking about casual sex, and there's a lot of different things that people could mean by casual sex. So I want to spend the first video, it's going to be a very short one, just telling you what that is in terms of the philosophical discussion of sex. So you might have heard casual sex being talked about in religious context. In religious context, they really just mean casual sex to be what they called fornication. So fornication, you might have heard people, I remember at college having the speaker come in and he was speaking in just the open area of the things, and he would say stuff like, "Fornicators, raise your hands," and everybody, woo, and they all thought it was funny to kind of tease the religious guy who had come to, preach about everybody going to hell and that kind of stuff. But anyway, so in the religious context, they talk about casual sex as being fornication, and what they mean by fornication is any sexual act that happens outside of marriage. Typically, as you probably are familiar, sex within religion, especially if you're talking Catholicism, is thought to be for procreation. That's the only really acceptable way that you have sex. Even masturbation is discouraged, and contraception is discouraged. So really, sex is about procreation. And even in other religious traditions outside of Catholicism, even Christianity, a lot of times what's being promoted or talked about as casual sex is fornication, sex outside of marriage. That's not what we're going to be talking about, sex outside of marriage, because a lot of people have conceptions of sex that don't have any religious input at all to it, and so we want to be a little bit broader in that. Another thing that we're going to kind of leave out of the discussion is casual sex that's related to adultery. So you might hear adultery, another religious term. Adultery is sex between two people, at least one of whom is in a relationship with someone who doesn't know about nor would consent to the sex happening. And we're not focusing on that because there are obvious kind of ethical implications with that. When you are bringing somebody else into it, and when you're kind of being dishonest with somebody, then there's different ethical implications than just casual sex. So we're leaving out casual sex that involves at least one partner who's in a committed relationship. So what we're talking about when we talk about casual sex is what some people have talked about as being promiscuity or being promiscuous. And these are series of sexual encounters that don't involve any kind of further commitment. You might have heard it as recreational sex or NSA sex, no strings attached, and that kind of stuff. That's what we're talking about. Now notice that in defining it this way, we're not referring to people who might have a lot of sex with a lot of different people, but at every step are trying to find a committed relationship, and they're just having a hard time finding the right person. They might have sex a lot with a lot of different people, but really what we're concerned about is those people who are having sex with somebody in which they're not looking for any kind of commitment. You might just be a serial monogamist, right? You might be with somebody and your number might add up really high because you were unsuccessful in finding the one person you're trying to find, but over and over you fail, and so you've had sex with a lot of people. But that's not casual sex, because in each of those there was a sense of wanting to be in a relationship or wanting to find a relationship, and maybe it's just been bad luck in doing that. So when we talk about casual sex, all I'm talking about and all I'm focusing on is sex with no strings attached, sex that's just recreational, just for the sex itself. And so that's what we mean when we talk about it philosophically, and that's what I'll be talking about in the next videos.